I thought my husband was fighting for his life in a hospital bed during the pandemic, but the truth was far more cruel. Let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. My name is Rachel Morgan, and I'm 33 years old. Before everything fell apart, my life looked almost perfect from the outside. I lived in a bright, sunny apartment on the 12th floor in downtown Chicago. From our windows, you could see the river, the bridges, the city skyline shining like something out of a postcard. My husband, David, and I had built a home there, not just a place to live, but a place filled with warmth, laughter, and memories. We had a 5-year-old son, Ethan, who filled our days with cartoons, bedtime stories, and sticky-fingered hugs. Our home was the kind where there were pancake breakfasts on Saturdays, bedtime stories every night, and quiet moments of wine on the balcony after Ethan fell asleep. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't perfect. But it felt safe. It felt like ours. David Morgan was my husband for 6 years. In Chicago's tech world, people saw him as someone on the rise. He wasn't some billionaire with headlines and yachts, but he'd built a small, successful software company. His business had steady clients, steady contracts, and a good reputation. People said he had vision. That he was smart, charming, good with people. He could win over investors in meetings and still make it home in time to kiss our son goodnight. Before Ethan was born, I had my own career. I worked in advertising, brand strategy, campaigns, marketing psychology. I was ambitious. I was good. My firm trusted me with major clients, and I was on track to become the youngest VP they'd ever had. But when Ethan came into our lives, everything changed. Suddenly, boardrooms and deadlines didn't seem as important as first words and baby giggles. David and I sat down together, hand in hand, and we made a choice. I would step away from my career. I would be a full-time mother, just for a little while, until Ethan was older. David promised me I didn't need to worry. He said we were a team, that he had us covered. And for a while, I believed him. For a while, it worked. I filled my days with small joys. Hosting art and wine nights with neighbors. Volunteering at Ethan's preschool. Taking slow walks to the market. Lazy afternoons at Grant Park. Watching Ethan chase bubbles under the trees. Friday nights were pizza nights. Ethan would build his little blanket fort in front of the TV, and David and I would sit on the couch, sharing quiet smiles. I trusted David completely. He seemed like the kind of husband other women envied. He remembered anniversaries. He left me sticky notes inside my books that said, "You're the best chapter." When we argued, and of course, every couple argues, he wasn't cruel. He always apologized. He always listened. Or at least, I thought he did. I thought I had the kind of life people write about. A happy home. A solid marriage. A husband I could trust. But what I didn't know then was that the man I trusted most had already started writing an ending I never saw coming. Then came March 2020. The pandemic hit Chicago like a tidal wave. One day the streets buzzed with life. The next, they were ghostly. Restaurants closed. Schools shut down. We were all told to stay inside, to isolate, to wait it out. Fear crept in, subtle at first, then overwhelming. David started working from home, setting up in our guest bedroom. At first, we joked about the chaos. Zoom calls interrupted by Ethan barging in, homemade sourdough attempts that ended in disaster. But the jokes faded quickly. Clients started pulling out. Projects were canceled. His team shrank as layoffs became inevitable. He began working longer hours, rarely emerging from the office. His smile became strained. His eyes tired. He insisted everything was under control, but I saw the tension in his jaw, the way he stared blankly at his screen long after the meetings ended. Then one night, he came home, if you could call walking down the hall coming home, and he looked different. Pale. Sweaty. Shaky. He collapsed onto the couch, his breath ragged, eyes wide with fear. "I think I'm sick," he whispered. Those 4 words stopped everything. What do you mean? I rushed over, kneeling beside him. You think it's COVID? He nodded weakly. I've had a fever all day. I can't breathe properly. Rachel, I'm scared. I don't want Ethan to get it. You should go to your parents. Take him. Please. I looked at him, confused and terrified. This wasn't like David. He never panicked. But there was real fear in his voice. I'm not leaving you like this, I said, grabbing my phone to call a doctor. No, he snapped, then softened. I'll figure it out. Just go. Take Ethan. I'll call you as soon as I know more. I promise. That night, I packed a small suitcase. Ethan was half asleep, clutching his stuffed giraffe, as I buckled him into the back seat of my car. David stood at the apartment door, not coming close, just watching us. I love you, I said through tears. I love you too, he murmured. It was the last sincere thing he ever said to me. In Springfield, where my parents lived, I spent the first few days in a haze. I checked my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for updates. David texted me that night, feeling worse. We'll update soon. Then a day later, going to the hospital. Can't breathe. Then nothing. Melanie, his assistant, reached out next. She told me he'd been admitted. He was on a ventilator. He couldn't speak. My stomach dropped. I asked which hospital. She didn't answer. She said everything was being handled. I trusted her. I had no reason not to. I sent care packages. Cookies, notes, drawings from Ethan. We lit candles. We prayed. And then, silence. Days turned to weeks. Then a month. Then 2. Melanie stopped replying. David remained unreachable. No hospital returned my calls. None had records under his name. I told myself the system was overwhelmed. That he was just too sick. That no news was still hope. But somewhere deep inside me, a seed of doubt had been planted. It grew quietly. It was early February 2021 when the letter came. I remember the moment vividly. Ethan was coloring beside me, humming some song he'd heard on TV. My father walked in from the porch holding a thick envelope. Rachel, he said cautiously, this came for you. It was postmarked from Chicago. The return address? David's lawyer. My stomach tightened. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and pulled out a neatly folded document. It was a request for my signature. David was selling our downtown apartment, the place we called home. I read it 3 times, trying to make sense of the words. Selling the apartment? But how? He was supposed to be hospitalized, barely surviving. My heart pounded in my ears. Something was deeply wrong. I could no longer convince myself that the silence was innocent. I looked at my father, who'd always been measured, rational, calm. He looked me square in the eyes. Something's not right, Rachel. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that letter, rage and confusion building like a storm. Had he recovered? Why hadn't he told me? Why did I have to find out from a real estate document? The next morning, I made a decision that changed everything. I packed our things. Told my parents I needed to go back. Ethan would stay with them for a few days while I sorted things out. My mother didn't argue. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "You go find your truth." Chicago was both familiar and foreign. The streets had a dull emptiness to them. Most places still operated under partial lockdowns, but I hardly noticed. My heart was racing as I walked up to our building, the weight of everything I'd suppressed pressing down on me. Tom, our longtime doorman, blinked when he saw me. His eyes widened, and he froze mid-step. "Mrs. Morgan," he said slowly as though speaking to a ghost. I nodded. "Hi, Tom." He fumbled for words. "I didn't expect. I thought you were gone." My brows furrowed. Why wouldn't I be back? He hesitated. "Mr. Morgan has been living here with someone else." There are moments in life when time slows, when the air thickens, and even your breath feels like betrayal. I didn't answer. I just walked to the elevator, pressed the 12th floor button, and waited as the numbers ticked upward. The apartment door was unlocked. I stepped inside and froze. Gone were the familiar rugs, the cozy pillows, the wall of photos we'd taken over the years. The space had been redecorated in a sterile, impersonal way. A long white couch, tall glass vases, candles, a new mirror over the mantel. Cold, minimal, like someone had tried to erase the past. And there, on that couch, sat David, laughing. In his arms, a young woman. Slender, blonde, beautiful, probably no older than 25. The laugh stopped when they saw me. Rachel? David's voice cracked. I didn't move. Couldn't. My eyes flicked to the woman. Her face drained of color. Lauren. I recognized her immediately. She'd been an intern at David's company just before the pandemic. I'd met her once at a work party. She'd shaken my hand and complimented my shoes. I remember thinking she seemed polite, quiet, eager. Now she was curled up next to my husband in what used to be our home. Ethan's home. No one said anything. The silence was loud with guilt. I turned and walked out. That night, alone in a hotel room, I cried until I couldn't breathe. But somewhere in the wreckage of that pain, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to be erased. I wasn't going to let them get away with it, not him, not her, not anyone who thought I'd stay silent. They were going to regret ever thinking they could break me. So, I started craving something more than just answers. I started craving justice. Not the kind written in court papers alone, but the kind that would leave them remembering my silence was never weakness. In the days that followed, I returned to Springfield, hugged Ethan tighter than ever, and started planning. Every night, after he went to bed, I opened my laptop and began collecting every receipt, document, email I could access. It started with our bank accounts. I found large transfers marked as consulting fees going to a name I didn't recognize. After some digging, I realized they belonged to Lauren. There were hotel receipts from Michigan, Colorado, even as far as California, during times David claimed to be hospitalized. Lavish jewelry orders. First-class flights. All charged to business accounts or hidden as marketing expenses. The more I uncovered, the sicker I felt. He hadn't just left us, he had constructed an elaborate fiction. He used the pandemic as his curtain and disappeared behind it, living a double life while I raised our son alone. Next came the conversations. I called Melanie. At first, she denied everything, but when I confronted her with the dates and receipts, her voice cracked. He said you left him, that you couldn't handle the pressure. I believed him. I'm sorry, Rachel. I didn't know. Then I started talking to mutual friends. People who had dropped off during the year, who hadn't reached out. One by one, I realized David had spun an entire narrative, that I'd broken down, fled, abandoned him and Ethan. That he was the victim. You didn't think to call me? I asked one of them, Hannah, a woman I once hosted baby showers and birthday parties with. She looked away, ashamed. He said you didn't want contact. That you were unstable. Unstable. That word lit a fire in me. He'd taken everything, my home, my reputation, and nearly my child's future. But I still had the truth. And I would make him choke on it. Grief is a strange thing. It disguises itself as exhaustion, silence, bitterness, or even focus. After discovering David's betrayal, I didn't scream. I didn't beg for answers. I got to work. Each night, when Ethan slept beside me, clutching his giraffe, I sat on the floor surrounded by files, notebooks, and printouts. I wrote everything down, every financial irregularity, every lie told to our friends, every email I could recover from an old shared cloud account. And that's when I found the laptop. It was an older MacBook David had used years ago, tucked in the back of our closet in Springfield, still in its worn-out sleeve. I almost didn't check it, but something told me to. When I powered it up, I discovered it had auto-synced with a cloud account David thought he'd erased. But he hadn't. There it was, a digital paper trail of everything. Late one night, I found the emails, hundreds of them between David and Lauren. One burned into my mind. She won't come back, not if we make her believe I'm sick. She'll be too scared. Another followed. Just say you're forwarding hospital updates. She won't question it if you sound sympathetic. In that moment, I realized every tear I cried, every fear I carried, it was all for a lie. Another one, even colder. Once we sell the place, she'll have nothing left. She's too emotional to fight back. She gave up her job. She doesn't even have an attorney. But now I had the proof. And I was done being their victim. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I printed them, each one, and saved digital backups in 3 separate locations. I wasn't going to lose a single bite of evidence. The finances told their own story. Slow, quiet theft from our joint account. Fake consultants. Fake invoices. Every withdrawal linked to the dates David and Lauren were off on their secret vacations. I tracked every dollar he stole, not just to expose him, but to prove it emotionally, legally, publicly. Then I started calling our old friends, recording every conversation. I asked them simple, pointed questions. What did David say about me? What did he tell you about Ethan? When did he claim I broke down? Their answers gave me exactly what I needed, his lies, in their own words. People talked. They always do. And with every recording, I built a case, not just of fraud, but of emotional manipulation. He'd weaponized his charisma against me, even turned my silence into evidence of guilt. But the biggest turning point came from someone I didn't expect. Melanie. I'd confronted her once before. She'd cried. But then one afternoon, she called me again, this time from her personal number. Rachel, can I talk to you? Her voice was different. Calm. Heavy. I didn't want to believe it, she said. But I've seen things now. And I think I helped him hurt you. She came over that evening. We sat outside on my parents' back porch, socially distanced, but emotionally raw. She pulled out her phone and played audio messages, recordings of conversations she had with David when he thought no one would ever hear them. Just keep telling her I'm sedated. Delay her. The more time that passes, the more confused she'll be. If you get uncomfortable, say the hospital won't allow calls. Play the COVID rules angle. She won't press. Melanie cried as she played them. He said you left him. That you didn't care anymore. I believed him. I was so stupid. Her testimony, recorded with her permission, became the most important weapon in my arsenal. David's family. His sister, Rebecca, had always been cold to me. I didn't expect sympathy, but I called her anyway. At first, she was defensive. Rachel, I don't want to be involved. But I didn't need her involvement, I needed her to hear the truth. And once I showed her the proof, even she couldn't deny what her brother had done. I calmly asked her to listen. Just 5 minutes. I played one of the voicemails. Then another. I emailed her the screenshots. And then I said one line that finally cracked her wall. He convinced you I abandoned your nephew. Is that the kind of brother you want to protect? She went quiet for a long time. The next morning, she called back, crying. I had no idea. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. She offered to testify on my behalf, confirming that David had lied about everything. I'll do anything, she said. He needs to be stopped. Then came the clients. I had experience in business. I knew how companies worked, how reputations shattered. I knew exactly how to take him down, not with accusations, but with undeniable proof. I tracked down 3 of David's top software clients, small firms that had stayed loyal during the pandemic. All 3 agreed to meet privately on Zoom. I didn't waste time. I showed them everything: fake invoices, overcharges, proof David had been billing them for employees and services that didn't even exist. Their reaction was swift. Contracts were canceled. Complaints were filed. And just like that, his carefully built business started to crumble. Contracts were terminated that week. One company filed its own complaint with the Small Business Administration. Another reported him to his board. His software company collapsed within a month. Lauren vanished from their LinkedIn profiles, her email signature scrubbed. Whatever fantasy world he had built came crashing down. Then the press. I didn't go to them directly. I used an anonymous tip line for a local business blog. Within days, a headline hit the feeds. Chicago tech founder accused of embezzlement, faking COVID illness during pandemic. Inside the article? Screenshots. Testimonies. Melanie's quote. His sister's admission. Anonymous but unmistakable. My lawyer froze David's assets the same day the article dropped. He was served 2 court summonses. Investigations opened. His empire built on lies crumbled into dust. And then he called. Just once. It was 2:03 a.m. I answered, knowing who it was without looking. You did this, he growled. You destroyed my life. I let the silence sit. Then I said, calm as ice. You erased mine first. A pause. You always needed drama. I was done with your pity stories. My voice didn't shake. You left your son. Lied to the world. Spent our money. And you think this is about drama? You buried us, David. I just dug us out. He hung up. I never heard his voice again. David never called again. But I watched his downfall unfold like a slow-moving avalanche. It didn't explode overnight, it disintegrated in layers, until there was nothing left to hide behind. After the news broke, David's life fell apart fast. His investors pulled out one after another. His office lease was canceled. Melanie, who had once covered for him, sent me a message. He's falling apart, she said. Lauren's left him. His lawyer dropped him. He's talking about leaving the city. I didn't dance with joy or throw a party. I didn't need to. Deep down, I felt something better than happiness, peace. Finally, justice was being served. Real justice, not revenge, not anger, but truth finally rising to the surface where it belonged. Filing for divorce wasn't easy, but I walked into it prepared. I had my evidence. I had my truth. And I had Maria Patel, one of Chicago's sharpest attorneys. She wasn't loud or flashy, but she was fierce. Calm. Strategic. The kind of woman who carried storms in her eyes and a quiet smile on her lips. I've seen men like him try to bury women like you before, she told me in our first meeting. But you came armed. You did your homework. David's legal team tried to fight back. They claimed I was unstable, abusive, a bad mother. The day Maria, lawyer, presented the laptop evidence during a pre-hearing, David's lawyer excused himself and quit the case. That's how clear it was. In the end, David had no choice but to settle. I got full custody of Ethan. Sole decision-making rights. A child support payment pulled directly from what little money David had left. I sold our apartment, the one that had been mine in every way except on paper, and put the money into a trust for Ethan's future. We moved into a small 2-bedroom townhouse in Oak Park. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Slowly, I filled it with things I loved. Soft pillows. Warm lamps. Art that made me smile. For the first time in years, I thought about myself. I pulled out my old resume. I reached out to people I used to know in the industry. Some were surprised to hear from me. Some weren't. But they welcomed me back as though I'd never left. Within 6 months, I was freelancing. Within a year, I started my own agency, helping women reclaim their voices from men like David. Months later, David emailed a hollow apology. I didn't reply, I didn't need to. But what do you think? If you face betrayal like this, would you fight back or walk away quietly? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own powerful stories.